Welcome to the pre-rent-up training for New York State Housing Trust Fund Corporation Capital Finance Projects presented by the New York State Homes and Community Renewal Statewide Asset Management Unit. Owners and managing agents of projects awarded funding through the New York State HTFC are required to participate in a pre-rent-up conference conducted by the Statewide Asset Management Unit. The conference will cover project operating and management requirements as described in Chapter 7 of the HTFC Capital Programs Manual, CPM, and the project's regulatory agreements. This brief overview is designed to supplement the project-specific conference and may be utilized to assist with training of owner/managing agent staff. Project owners are required to comply with the terms of the CPM and the project's regulatory agreements. We encourage you to review the CPM Chapter 7 on an annual basis as changes are made periodically. The purpose of pre-rent-up training is to outline key topics and requirements as described in Chapter 7 of the CPM, and timely adherence to the Fair and Equitable Housing Office (FEHO) requirements prior to initial marketing. The pre-rent-up conference is a discussion between the owner, agent, the State Asset Management Unit, and typically our colleagues in finance and development. Project-specific details in the regulatory agreement are discussed at that time. Other internal/external partners may be added as appropriate, such as Section 8 local program administrators, special needs service providers, New York City Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, New York State HCR FEHO, New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, OTDA, and other funding partners. Equipped with both this training and the subsequent pre-rent-up conference, you are on your way to ensuring project compliance from the very beginning. Prior to the scheduled pre-rent-up conference, the project owner must have the following documentation: conditionally approved Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan long form, Notice of Intent, NOI, final advertisement submitted to the State Asset Management Unit and the Fair and Equitable Housing Office, executed funding commitment letter, FCL. HTF or home-funded projects must use the HCR lease found on the HCR website. With the exception of rent-stabilized properties, properties funded by rural development, properties required to use a HUD model or Section 8 lease. Approved management agreement and approved management plan. Executed regulatory agreements, if applicable. The pre-rent-up conference is mandatory. Marketing cannot begin until a pre-rent-up conference has been conducted and the Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan long form has been approved by FEHO. AMU will list the approved ads on our external lottery website for viewing by the general public. Topics that will be discussed in the pre-rent-up conference include the following: funding sources, set-asides, FEHO requirements, Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan, lottery and marketing, special population served, if applicable, supportive housing agreement, if applicable, tenant rent plan, operating deficit guarantee, ODG, operating budget, rent increases, general operating and reserve account requirements, reserve withdrawal procedure, return on equity procedure, tenant income certification, TIC, and site visit schedule. The following slides summarize key requirements of the CPM. The topics highlighted are bank accounts, insurance, annual reporting, and tenant management requirements.
The following bank accounts are to be established: general operating account, to deposit all project income and disbursement of project expenses. Working capital fund account, after first-year funds transferred to operating reserve account. Operating reserve account, which requires capitalization and monthly deposits per RA. Replacement reserve account, which requires capitalization and monthly deposits per RA. Real estate tax and insurance escrow account for monthly deposits from general operating account. And tenant security deposit account, which requires deposits into interest-bearing accounts. Withdrawals from the project's reserves require prior approval from the State Asset Management Unit. Projects must follow the 36-month operating deficit guarantee period, where applicable, and 5-year replacement reserve requirements. The specific requirements for each account are found in the CPM Chapter 7 and the project's RA.
The CPM requires submission of the Accord certificate for the following: liability insurance minimum $1 million DHCR per HTFC additionally insured. Fire and casualty insurance replacement value of project HTFC as mortgagee/loss pay. Flood insurance if located in a 100-year floodplain. Automobile liability insurance minimum $1 million. Workers' compensation and disability benefits. Blanket position fidelity bond 3 months rent roll plus project reserves HTFC as loss payee. Insurance claims must be reported to the State Asset Management Unit within 24 hours. Specific requirements are detailed in Section 7 of the CPM.
Annual reporting requirements. Audit report prepared by a CPA. Due within 120 days of the close of the project's fiscal year and must include HTFC excess income calculation. Performance report, HTF only/no LIHC, due within 120 days of the close of the project's fiscal year. Operating budget, due 90 days prior to start of the project's fiscal year. Home 6D checklist, due within 120 days of the project's fiscal year. Home certification, due within 120 days of the close of the project's fiscal year. Benchmarking. Benchmarking reports are due annually on March 1 to report the previous year's energy use. Administered by the benchmarking team at HCR. Contact benchmarking team HCR, sustainability at hcr.ny.gov. For more info, visit the hcr.ny.gov website. Low-income housing tax credit data collection, annual submission. And finally, low-income housing tax credit owner certification and monitoring fee, annually by first week of November.
Tenant management requirements. Tenant selection process. Fees. No fees are to be charged to the applicant, with the exception of fees in connection with background check or credit check, and are limited to the lesser of $20, cumulatively, or the actual cost incurred by the project. Occupancy standards minimum and maximum per bedroom size. Credit and justice involvement applicant policies. For further information about FEHO policies and corresponding forms, please visit our FEHO website. Tenant selection from waiting list. Establishing and adjusting project rents. Approval is required by the State Asset Management Unit. Tenant income verification. Refer to Chapter 5 of HUD Handbook 4350. Lease requirement. HTFC/home projects must use the DHCR approved lease. Term of tenant lease agreement minimum 1 or 2 years. At tenant's option, leases must be renewed. Tenants cannot be evicted via holdover. Next steps. The project owner/management agent must review the CPM, FEHO requirements, and the executed commitment letter before the conference. After reviewing the CPM Chapter 7, please submit any questions in advance of the Pre-Rent Up Conference to the State Asset Management Unit for planned discussion during the Pre-Rent Up Conference so that we may schedule sufficient time to discuss any questions or concerns you may have. This concludes the overview of the CPM and Pre-Rent Up Conference. Thank you for viewing and sharing with your colleagues as needed. We look forward to a long and successful partnership in providing safe, decent, and affordable housing to residents of New York State.